Hey guys, here's a little sneak peek into what we'll be doing today. Get your notebook, get your popcorn, or whatever your favorite snacks are because this is a long one. If you have problems with bleach and tones, then I suggest you stay tuned. Don't forget you can follow me at Christy at the Cottage on Instagram to stay up to date with all my posts. Check out that grow out. Okay, here's my client before we get started. Okay, I'm so excited. One of my favorite little blondies is here. I will show you the hair that we've done in the past. She had gone to see another stylist just because she lives down south from me, and it was easier for her to get in with somebody else, but she wasn't really happy with the hair that they had done. So now she's back and we're gonna do her hair and fix her up, and I'm really hoping that we have a good outcome with our transformation that we're gonna do because we're used to being really platinum and bright blonde. So we're hoping that's the same result we can get today, but we do have some dark color that we have to lift through. So we'll just see what we can accomplish. Also, I did her hair probably a few months ago, just kind of like a test run since I hadn't done it in so long, just to see what her hair was capable of doing and how would it lift, would there be damage? And her hair felt pretty decent to be able to move on with this process. So that's where we are at today. For lightening, I'm using Schwarzkopf Blondie with 20 volume and Olaplex, and I love that this has a bond enforcer included in the lightener, so I feel like I'm getting double protection. Okay, to section off, I'm actually gonna start in the back. Normally, if I was doing just a typical double process with somebody coming in for a retouch, I would start up at the top, but because we have like 12 inches, I'm just kidding, but because we have so many inches of grow out, I figured that it's easier to start in the back because by the time I get my way to the top of the head, this is already going to be sitting for a couple hours. So I'd rather be able to rinse it out at the shampoo bowl and not have to worry about the top section like getting in her face if I already have lightener on it. So I figure that the easiest way to go about this, if somebody is starting fresh with a bleach and tone and they have dark hair and they've never done it before, I highly recommend starting in the back. I feel like you can get a cleaner lightening process. It's not going to be as messy if you can just like pin the hair in the front to the sides and wash it out once you get the back done. I feel like that's the best bet because if you bleach all of the back, and then honestly that took about probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to do this back section. By the time I get to the top of her head, it's already been sitting for so long. So imagine having to do the whole sides and the top. I mean, that could be potentially 4 hours that the bleach is sitting on the hair. That's way too dangerous, and I'm just not comfortable with that. So I personally would like to start in the back, let it process for a little bit, and then wash it out, and then start on the sides. So take that into consideration. If you ever do a process like this, it's better to be safe than sorry. So I'd rather have it take a little bit longer and make sure that I'm not going to damage the hair and start in the back. Pay attention to how thin of a section I'm taking. Normally, I feel like if somebody's not getting good, clean, even lift, then they're probably taking too thick of a section. Look how you can see through the hair to the foil. If you cannot see through the hair, then your section's too big. It's not gonna lift fast enough. It's gonna be too warm. So make sure you're taking paper thin sections. Yes, it will take quite a while to do the service, but you're going to get better lift. You're going to have a better end result. So take your time with this service. Know that it's going to take all day, and that's okay. Just make sure you're charging accordingly, and your clients will be happy because in the end, they're getting the result that they want. Another thing to pay attention to is look how thick I'm laying on the bleach. If you can see the hair at all, then your bleach isn't thick enough. You need to make sure that you're really saturating the hair. You do not want to skimp out on bleach when you're doing a bleaching process like this. You want to make sure that you have heavy saturation. Do not let the bleach dry out. Make sure that you insulate your sections too. That way it has enough heat that it can process really well. Especially when you get to the mid shaft and the ends, if it's not insulated, you're going to have a lot of warm undertones because it's just not gonna lighten good enough because it doesn't have that heat like the scalp does. So make sure that you're insulating your sections, whether it's with foil or saran wrap or whatever you want to use, and make sure that you're using tons of bleach. I think with this client, we ended up having to refill our bleach like 8 to 10 times. So it takes a lot of lightener, but just don't feel bad if you're using tons of bleach because that again is going to help you get the best result. And then also look at the brush that I'm using. I think it's like the Big Daddy by Framar. It's an extra wide base of a brush, so I feel like I can get my sectioning down a little bit better instead of having a smaller brush and then having to work a little bit harder. Services like these that are going to take a long time, you want to make sure that you have the best tools for the job because otherwise it can really just make it drag on even longer. So I'm using this brush, and then also there will be times that I have a board that I pull out. That works really well because sometimes when you're doing the service and you're using your hand to stabilize the hair or the foils, it can cause your hand to cramp out really bad. So using a board against the back of the head helps preserve the strength of your hand and to prevent it from hurting as bad. And then also you can make sure that when you're using the board, you can press down a little bit harder to make sure that you're pushing the bleach through. You're really making sure you're mushing it through the hair to triple check that you're getting great saturation again. Right in here as I'm pulling the hair out, you can see right there where that darker shadow is. That's the permanent color that we're trying to break through. So at this point, I'm kind of worried because I really don't know if we're going to be able to lift past that or if it's going to leave a whole bunch of brassiness or orange tones in the hair. And this is just something that you need to conversate with your client, that the lifting process is a mystery. You have no idea really what it's going to do or what it's capable of doing. So always keep an open line of communication with your clients and just tell them, like, we can do the service, but just know that you do have previous color on the hair, and that's going to alter the end result of your hair. There might be some areas where you're going to have really great lift and you're going to get really bright, but then there could be areas where it's still really warm. So just be honest and open with them and let them know that this is what could potentially happen. And then you can discuss how to go about it after you've done with your lightening service, you can see what would be the best way to go about toning, but just make sure you tell them ahead of time. Like if you have any dark tones in your hair, then chances are you will still have a little bit of warmth. Here's the whole back section that we did, and I let this sit for probably about 30 minutes at this point right here before we went and washed out. So throughout this whole time I was keeping an eye through the bottom half just because obviously it had been sitting for such a long time. So right now we are going to wash out the back half of her head. Oh my God, you guys, I swear my biggest fear is when I'm pulling the foils out like this and like a chunk of hair just like comes off with it. I would die. After I wash her out, I'm putting on a really good amount of olaplex so that way that has time to recover her hair after the lightening process. Now we are moving on to the sides up to the top, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky because previously in this area I have done like some facial framing highlights and stuff, so I have to be extra cautious here to make sure that I'm pulling aside some of those little baby fine foils that I had done. Like right here I'm setting it aside because I don't want to run it through the ends. So make sure that you're taking the time to find any really bright hair that's already been lightened, like pull it aside to the foil, make sure you're getting the root, but just don't drag it through the ends. You really want to try and prevent any breakage from happening as much as possible. And now we're just going to repeat the same steps on the other side. And look how orange that hairstyle is. It boggles my mind how much warmth there is through the bleaching process. It's also kind of funny to watch your clients freak out when they think that's what it's going to look like. Okay, now that I have the sides processing, I'm gonna go through and do her roots from when I applied first in the beginning of the appointment. And I left it about a 1/4 inch to an inch off the scalp. And there are some areas when I was using the board that it got a little bit closer and maybe it swelled a little bit more. So right now I'm gonna go through and make sure that I get her roots really nicely, and make sure here again also that you're taking very thin sections. First get the bottom part of the hair and then lay that part down and get the top. That way you can make sure you're getting, again, even saturation. I know you can't hear it, but constantly through this part of the service, when I'm applying it actually to her scalp, I'm constantly asking her, how does your scalp feel? Does your hair feel like it's burning? How are you feeling? Is your scalp bothering you? You want to make sure that your client is comfortable, that her scalp isn't irritated, because some clients could get blisters. Some people can get a really bad scalp irritation, chemical burn. You really, really, really want to be safe and cautious that your client is comfortable. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit tingly and kind of irritating at times. But you want to make sure for the most part that it's something that they can handle and that it's not too uncomfortable and that it's causing damage. Also, I wouldn't recommend going over 20 volume on the scalp. I rarely ever use anything over 20 volume. So definitely make sure that you're just using 20 volume on the scalp to prevent any irritation. And then also, the more you start combing through the hair and handling the hair, the more it's going to start irritating the scalp because now you're bringing like stimulation and everything. So just try, once you put the lightener on the hair, don't touch it unless you absolutely have to. That way it doesn't irritate them, as least as possible. Now we're moving over to the top section and working our way down. Because we've already gone through and done her mid shaft, I think it's really easy to just section the hair, take the foil and kind of like flip it over and have the hair lay on top of that. That way your sections stay really clean. Just kind of pull the foil down a little bit. That way it exposes the roots. And then you can constantly just keep flipping the foil over to insulate the hair. This is a good way to prevent the hair from falling on their face, from having the bleach fall everywhere, the hair flop all over the place and get lightener just any and everywhere, all over the cape and everything. So this is gonna help the hair stay insulated. Also, you're gonna get a better lift because of this, and your application is just gonna look a lot neater overall. Another thing that would be wise at this point is to ask your client to close their eyes, just because it's kind of hard to see beyond the foil, and sometimes the bleach gets a little bit watery, and as it's processing it can start swelling and potentially like dripping. So right in this part, I would just say ask your clients to close their eyes just when you're applying the lightener. That way you don't accidentally fling anything into their eye, and you don't want to be liable for anything like that. So just another word to the wise. Okay, now that I'm done applying at her roots on one side, I honestly should have waited to do this part until I was done applying to the roots on the other side, but I had to start flipping all of the foils back over so that I could get the other side of the head. But when I was starting to flip her hair, I was wanting to run it through the brassy areas and check some of the areas where she previously had bleach at, just to make sure that those baby fine highlights that we had talked about before weren't getting damaged. So at this point I am just making sure that I'm pulling off the lightener just to be safe from those little delicate areas. It's like your roots here are already done. Like I just put it on and it's already almost done. It's insane. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about it. I just had to feel it and make sure if it's okay.
If we have breakage, you already know I'm prepared for it.
I know, but my goal is to not have breakage, so I need to like...
I'm not gonna be that client that's gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is your fault. No, this is my hair's fault. I know.
I need breakage.
I know, but you always know I'm prepared to price it. I will pay the piper.
I know what I've done to myself.
Yeah, like I will take my consequences.
I can't help it. Once we get like into here, maybe I won't care as much.
I know.
But like right on the hairline, you know what I mean? Then I just don't want to.
It's okay. You do whatever you would like to do. I'm fine with anything.
Today my client was arguing with me about her breakage. Just let it melt off. It's fine. It doesn't matter at this point. It might be time consuming, you guys, but I can guarantee you that your clients will always appreciate the fact that you're making sure that you're keeping the integrity of their hair a priority and trying to prevent as much damage as possible. I will say that there is something to be said for stylists that have OCD or are very meticulous with their work, is that the quality of their work is amazing. This is like my problem. My OCD is like, I gotta finish this part, but that stuff hasn't even hit yet. Gotta get over there, but this stuff needs to be done.
Hey, you're getting there. You're almost there.
As you're going through and flipping the hair back over to the other side, now's a good time to go ahead and do some spot checking and just tap the hair in areas that might be a little bit brassy still and just hit it with some bleach so that it kind of works through those brassy areas. As we're gonna go through the back now and try to break through this brassiness, I like to spray the hair down first because it kind of helps the bleach work through a little bit better. And also take your sectionings and go vertically instead of horizontally, because then you can double check your work and open the hair up and see if there's any dark holes in the hair that maybe you missed with bleach. There's never a problem with checking your work. We all make mistakes, even if we don't want to acknowledge it. So make sure you're going through and checking your work as best as you can, and just keep a little eye on it to see if you need to just touch it up in any areas. Now would be the time to do it. Right now, I'm basically taking the leftover bleach from when I had applied at the roots in the last section, and it's been sitting for quite a while at this point. I'm just spraying the hair down because it makes it easier for the lightener to spread, and we just want to apply the bleach in these brassy areas, not anything that's going to be like a fresh bowl of bleach because we don't want to damage the hair and cause any breakage, but just something that's strong enough, even if it's pretty weak, because any bleach at this point it's going to sit for probably like maybe 15-20 minutes or so, and that's usually strong enough that it will just help blast through these areas of warmth and get you to the level where you're ready to rinse. Here you can see that made such a difference just letting it sit for about 20 minutes or so. We were able to push through that warmth, and now we're going to go take her to the shampoo bowl and let her sit with Fanola No Yellow shampoo for about 10 minutes. I highly recommend you use these products for treatments on the hair, especially when doing services like this. Okay, my client literally has been processing for 5 or 6 hours with bleach on her hair. We've had so many different steps. She just got done sitting with the olaplex and the acidic milk rinse on her hair, and so hopefully that helped like balance her hair out so it doesn't grab too much in certain areas. Right now we're going to mix her toner, and we talked about it because she does have a previous band of color that she had on her hair. There is some areas where it's like a little warm still. So I asked her if she wants to tone for the brightest blonde or a little bit darker to try to minimize the warmth. And I think we're just gonna tone for the brightest blonde, and hopefully it will mask the warmth as much as possible. So we will see. Here's what I'm toning with for her hair. This 10AA is a new color that just came out, and I am obsessed with it. And also, don't forget your drops of rose gold, or just gold in general, but the Demi has rose gold. That's going to help balance all of the tones, so that way you don't get any of the ashy or violety tones grabbing in the extra pores here and causing it to go muddy or just a little bit too ashy in certain areas. I let this sit for about 15 minutes. Here's her before again, and I am so excited for her after. I would not let her look into the mirror until I was finally done.
Okay, you can look.
You are. Stop! Oh, Christy! How the hell did you do it?
Lots of prayers to Jesus.
This is. I feel like you're like, it's gonna be so warm and all this stuff. Oh my gosh! It's perfect.
There is a little bit of warmth, to be honest, just kind of where the permanent color was from the last stylist that was there.
But it doesn't like crazy stand out. Like
Yeah.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm in shock.
Me too.
I can't believe it. I
Yeah.
don't even like know what to say. This is perfect.
Look at the back.
This is like, oh my gosh. And it's still so long.
Yeah, we only had to trim like a little inch, but you could see here is kind of where
But it's
that
not
dark.
that noticeable.
No. Mm-mm. I think it would be if you straighten your hair a little bit, but if it's kind of curled, it kind of mimics like a shadowy look to it. But I think it's fine though. It looks good.
I love it. For what came in.
I know. I know.
Oh my gosh. This is insane.
Yeah.
This is insane. I did not think this was going to happen at all today.
I know. So good.
It's crazy good. Crazy good.
9 hours later.
You know, it's a whole day.
Whatever. No big
right.
deal.
Thank you guys so much for watching again. I appreciate your time if you watched the full thing. If you have anything that you learned, please leave it in the comment section below. If you have any tips that you want to share, please tell us all. Also, another thing to please tell your clients is to not use heat over 330 or 340 to prevent any burning or brassiness in the hair. Thanks again, you guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe.